And welcome to another episode of Second to None. I'm your host tonight, Chris. I'm your Vandy faithful, and I've got with me Kenneth, who is proudly displaying that Bama choked, and George, who happens to be the real Hog fan. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, we're doing great.
So before we get into anything today, we as a group have decided that we want to observe a moment of silence for the 6 victims in Nashville today. The 3 adults and the 3 children were that lost their lives in a senseless act today. And we just want to take just a few moments of silence as we think about Covenant School. All right, so tonight what we want to talk about is the Elite 8 basketball games, and we'll go over them and give our thoughts about that and look ahead to the Final Four. And we're actually going to make our picks tonight. So let's start off with the first game.
Okay.
And I'm going to call the first game Kansas State and FAU. Is that the right game? Yeah.
Yes.
So what was your guys' thoughts on how that played out? And do you think the right team won?
Okay, so I'll start this out. Did the right team win for that game? Yes. FAU showed up, outplayed Kansas State. Clearly, one thing I've learned about this tournament this year is the best team's not winning. It's the team that shows up to play. And right now, FAU showed up that night and outplayed K-State to win. So I'm here to say that, not revealing anything, but I don't see the best team winning.
So let me ask you the question. Are you sure these other teams are the best team? Because what we do know is that FAU actually has the most wins in the country on the season.
Well,
so are we sure the best team is actually winning?
On paper, okay. Let me say it like this. On paper, Kansas State was the best team. Skill-wise, FAU had players that could match. So, but
tough question.
I don't want to go no further with what I have to say because it's going to reveal what I have to say later on.
Oh, a little suspense. Keep us in suspense there,
right?
Because I do have something to say later on when we start revealing our Final Four. That's probably going to shock a lot of folks out there.
Here's what I say. If you lead the nation in victories, I can't say with a straight face that somebody else is a better team.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, they've won 35 games for a reason.
Yeah.
So
to answer your question, by all means, if they knock off K-State, yes, they're the better team. Is the general consensus that they're the better team? I don't think so. Why? Because FAU they're being called the Cinderella team this year. So by all means, that means that on paper and at the beginning of this tournament, nobody thought FAU was going to go as far as they did. Although it's funny, I did see one bracket guy by the name of Bubbles that's floating around all over the sports pages that he picked it correctly, the Final Four. Now, I don't know how this man came up with it. I think he just threw something and it just stuck to a wall. But yeah, I don't think anybody anticipated FAU to go in and be able to even match up well against K-State. I mean, K-State looked dominant, against Kentucky at times. Yeah, they faltered a little bit. Kentucky got back into it, but they looked like the team to beat, and especially in that bracket. And FAU proved them wrong.
That's a solid basketball team. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the second game of that day.
Yeah.
And UConn Gonzaga.
Well,
here's what talk about, is there?
There's not much to talk about that game, but here's what I got to say about it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I think the coach of UConn had the perfect strategy going into that game.
Yep.
I mean, he said it in his press conference. Mm-hmm. My goal was to go in was put Timmy in foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He had a plan, and clearly he's a good coach for some reason.
Executed it, yeah.
He executed what he wanted to do, and that execution paid off. They didn't just beat Gonzaga; they destroyed Gonzaga.
Yes, they did, and because of that, I don't know how you don't have them as the favorite to win it all.
We'll get.
I mean, I know, we'll get there, but I'm not revealing my pick yet. But as if you look at the 4 teams that are in there right now, and you look at the victories that have been through there, the general consensus or the public consensus should say, oh yeah, no, UConn is absolutely the favorite, just based off of their performances. Nobody anticipated them giving Gonzaga a 30-point beatdown. Not at all. I mean, to have Arkansas be closer of a ball game than Gonzaga, I never pictured that to happen. But I said it from the beginning. I watched the entirety of the Arkansas game, and I watched the entirety of the Gonzaga game, and those are men out there. Those ain't boys. UConn's got men, and they are some hosses, and they're going to be a very, very tough team entering into this Final Four.
Yeah, and no doubt about that. That they are a tough team. I was surprised at the difference in strategy between UConn and UCLA,
mm-hmm.
where UCLA was, we're going to play Jordan rules and play you 5-on-4 because
mm-hmm.
Drew Timmy's going to get his. So
mm-hmm.
we'll let him get his. We're going to stop everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of backfired on them. They lost the game.
Yep.
Most of the game it did work, where they got themselves out to a 17-point lead twice.
Yeah.
But they couldn't sustain it. But UConn went the opposite direction, said, we're going to stop Drew Timme, make everybody else beat us.
Yeah.
So that was quite the difference in strategy there. I was impressed by that.
Yeah, that's a heck of a coaching job, because that recognizes that, I mean, we'll never know this, but say UCLA didn't come out with that strategy, maybe UConn goes with that strategy. But because UCLA tried it first and it failed, he's like, okay, wait a minute, we need to look at this a different way. And they come out totally opposite.
Yep.
And that was the killer. And now, I mean, nobody's going to have to worry about Drew Timme anymore. He's done, finally, after 10 years. I can't believe 10 years. But, it was remarkable to see.
I don't want to break the news to you, but he's not done.
No, he's not.
How?
He has a COVID year left.
Oh my gosh. This man will not go away. I haven't been paying attention to nothing. I'm so glad that you guys got to see my real reaction to that, because I did not know that.
Yeah, he's got a COVID year yet. Whether he takes it or not's another story, because 4 years of college basketball does beat and bang on a person's
11
body.
years. If he takes an 11th year, that's got to be some kind of record. That's got to be a record.
Wasn't there's a football player somewhere that might be Oregon or Oregon State. can't remember who it was, but he's entering his 9th year of playing college football, and he's had like 5 redshirt injury seasons,
Man,
a COVID year, and it's like Jesus Christ.
It's Oregon.
I think it is Oregon, but
It's Oregon.
Timmy ain't been injured. Timmy ain't. I mean, I don't think he has been, but good Lord, I swear he does not want to go to the NBA.
He won't
It
make
just
it.
seems
He don't fit the
like,
game.
huh?
He just don't fit the NBA game.
No, and I mean,
So milk what you got until it's done, right?
that's what I think it is. I mean, good God, he's got to be the oldest player to play basketball in college. Got to be. I mean, that's insane. 10 years in NCAA, and then you have the possibility of taking 11th. Anyway, that's nuts.
Yeah.
But regardless, man, UConn's gonna be tough.
And I thought Gonzaga actually played fairly well in the first half. I mean, it was a 1-point game at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
They were hanging in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that 21-5 run at the beginning of the second half it did them in, and
The wheels
Gonzaga
fell off.
they just looked shell shocked.
Yep.
Never recovered.
You know what? Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
The 21-5 run did them in, but you wouldn't have went on that 21-5 run if they wouldn't have did what their plan was.
Get Timmy in foul trouble.
At the 16:30 in the second half, 16 minutes and 38 seconds left in the game, he had 4 fouls. They did exactly what they went to do. That's when they took off on that run, because without him and him sitting on the bench, they knew that Gonzaga could not play with them.
So here's the question. If Timmy comes back, have they just exposed the formula to beat Gonzaga?
Yes.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think that's the only way you can beat them, is if you have fair refs, I'm not getting into that, who actually call fouls, and you put Timmy and body up Timmy and make him foul you. I think that's the recipe to win right there.
I agree with that.
Crazy. Yeah. 16 minutes left and he's got 4 fouls. That's nuts.
Yeah. So the next game that was played is one that a lot of people are upset about. San Diego State and Creighton.
Mm-hmm.
So what was y'all's take on that game?
Good game. It was a foul at the end of the game. Creighton knew better. The ball player knew better. If I'm not mistaken, the one that called for the foul, if I'm not mistaken, is a junior. Mm-hmm. He knew better. So at the end of the day, there's nothing controversial about it.
No.
There's nothing about it. You completely fouled him.
Yep.
In the worst case scenario, you should have just stood there.
Yeah.
Let him shoot the shot. He misses it, you're in overtime. Yep. He makes it, well, you just got beat on a last second shot. So, agreed. But instead, you got beat on a last second free throw.
Yeah. Well, and let's be fair, the media is what fueled that controversy. There is no controversy, but the media was throwing all kinds of stuff out there. Yeah. Oh, it's so controversial, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, he fouled him. Let's get over it. He shouldn't have fouled him, and it was, it was done. You cannot make that mistake and put a guy on the free throw line that when the game's that close and with that much time on that little bit of time on the clock. So
I agree.
I mean, hats off to Creighton. They played a heck of a game. San Diego State is another team that I expected to go far, that I expected to play well. I think I don't have my bracket pulled up, but I think I had Alabama beating them. and I think I had that matchup predicted correctly. But I did not expect them to figure it out like they did earlier in the year. And I'll say this because I'm a Hog fan. I can. Earlier in the year, we met Creighton and San Diego State in a tournament at the very beginning of the year. Both very tough teams. The end of the Creighton game, there was some fouls that were sure, whatever. There were very ticky-tack fouls that were giving Creighton all the momentum. But then when we played San Diego State, it was a really close and well-played ball game, and we actually beat them. But I mean, tournament is tournament, and they deserve to be there. They played Creighton well, and I expect it to be a good ball game.
What surprises me is I don't get to watch a lot of West Coast teams play because of the time they play.
Right.
I'm always busy doing something else.
Yep.
But I am absolutely amazed by their hand movements and how quick their hands are. Very quick with their hands. I'm stunned by that. I think that could give FAU some problems. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that when we hit on the Final Four. But let's touch on the next game, which was Miami and Texas. And that's another very, very good game that went down to the wire.
I was hoping that was going to happen. Although I am excited that was a very good game, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am glad that today it was announced that Texas did hire the assistant coach to be their head coach. So I'm glad that they didn't pull a very Texas move and be like, oh, well, you proved yourself, but we want this name. So kudos to them in that respect. But yeah, that was a good game. And Miami looks tough.
Do you think that game changes if Dylan Dessou is available?
I think it would have been a factor. Yes, I do.
It would have been a factor, but here's what you got to think about the Miami game. Okay. There was one player on Miami that did something that has not been done since 1986, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. He went perfect. Did not miss a shot. Did not miss a free throw. Did not miss nothing. The kid was perfect. He played his butt off. That is what beat Texas, because Texas did not have an answer for that kid.
No.
He did something, and the year might be wrong, but it was like 1980 something that the last time it happened. And if I'm not mistaken, the person that did it ended up becoming an NBA legend.
That's crazy. I hadn't heard that.
Yes,
he went perfect.
He went perfect, and that's what the coach, after the game when they were interviewing, he said it was not just him; it was the whole team. But his contribution today of not missing nothing is what. Now, I'm not gonna say he's gonna be able to do it again, because it's not something that very rarely happens.
Yeah,
but he did go perfect.
I mean, we could if all day long. I mean, you put the Texas guy in that's injured on, let's say, for instance, he plays him and he's the one that guards said dude from Miami. I mean, it could have been different. We don't know, but it wasn't.
No, right? Yeah, you're right.
So would it be a factor? Yeah, of course it would. The guy was a starter for Texas. Absolutely. It would have been a factor, but I mean, it was Miami putting together a good game plan. Yeah. And there were times that Texas just looked lost in that game.
That is true.
I'll be honest with you, at the 5-minute mark left in that game with Texas having a 5-point lead, I thought Miami was in serious trouble. And then the way they closed that game out, it's got my eyes open to something else. And since we're on Miami, let's go ahead and start talking about our Final Four.
Okay.
Hold on, you forgot a game. You can't leave me out of this.
How did I forget a game?
Oh, you forgot a game.
I got all
You
of our.
no,
I got all of them.
you forgot a game. You can't leave me out of this.
What game did I forget?
You forgot
really
that.
wants to
I
talk.
want the Alabama game.
Oh my
That was
goodness.
a Sweet 16
I
game,
don't
bro.
care. I want the Alabama game, dadgummit. Because I got something to say.
Go ahead.
Two-
I give you the
Two
room to
people
say it.
last week.
Mm.
Two people last week called me out. Not gonna call you out on here because I'm just not gonna do that. But all I got to tell you is, I told y'all so. I've called it since February that if Alabama meets a big man that can hold their star Miller to nothing, Alabama loses. The kid made 4 shots in 40 minutes. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
But let's be honest about that. It wasn't because of the big post play. It was because of the quick hands from San Diego State that denied him the ball.
Yep.
Hey, that's fine too. But the big man shut him down in the paint.
Well, I watched that game, and the turnovers was the factor for me. Alabama, I mean, it's like they thought they had this game in the bag, and San Diego come up and picked a pocket. And they're like, oh, what happened? Where'd the ball go? And somebody's running down the floor and dunking. I mean, it was remarkable. I don't think I've ever seen a hands team quite like San Diego State. That is something else. Bama has not. I don't think Bama's had that many turnovers all year. But they are not. It proves Bama is not a. Or let's say this: this year's team was not a good recovery team, because every time they got a turnover and they run it back, it was like Alabama had to refigure out how to play basketball again. It was kind of crazy how, I mean, it was crazy. And San Diego State kept taking advantage. You know, Nate Oates called a timeout. Same thing keep happening. And you know, Alabama made it close. They did. They made it close. But at the end of the day, it's exactly what you said. They bodied up on Brandon Miller and kept him from taking over the game. And the turnovers is what kept him out of it. But keeping Brandon Miller out of it was the deciding factor. And that's exactly what they did. So kudos for picking that, Ken. And you wear that name badge very proudly. Hashtag Bama choked. And they did. Because it was their tournament to choke in. So.
Yep. So, do you think who do you think wins this Miami and UConn game? Because I'm seeing a lot of takes that I'm just not sure about.
That is going to be a really tough game. Miami, if it depends on how UConn defends. I mean, that's the deciding factor for me. If they defend like they've defended against Arkansas and Gonzaga, Miami's going to be in trouble, and in trouble fast. If Miami puts up 3, 3, 3, 3, and you know, back to back, I mean, and keep it. I mean, we may have an overtime game. We may have an overtime Final Four game. I don't know. It's really hard to pick that one. I don't know. It's going to be that'll be a good ball game in my opinion.
So I actually think Miami matches up really, really well with UConn, and they present some problems that I'm not sure UConn's ready to defend. If you look at the Miami-Texas game, I believe Miami went 3 of 8 for the game.
Yeah,
on threes. They don't shoot a lot of threes.
No.
They rely on the mid-range jump shot, which is a lost art in college basketball.
Yep.
And with that style of play, I think that's going to give UConn all kinds of trouble.
Yeah, I agree.
So Uh, I don't know. It's going to be a fun game to watch, I think.
Okay, this is what I have to say. The winner of this game wins it in the second half. UConn is plus 96 differential
It's
in
true.
the second half. Now, throw the first half out.
Mm-hmm.
This game is won in the second half. If UConn can keep up their differential,
Mm-hmm.
then they beat Miami. But in the second half, if Miami can go shot for shot with them and stay up with them,
Mm-hmm.
UConn loses.
And not
That
get
is,
foul trouble. That's
and not get in foul trouble with them. If Miami can not get in foul trouble and go shot for shot with UConn in the second half, because clearly all 4 games in the tournament so far, UConn's won it by a big margin in the second half.
mm-hmm.
My outtake on this game is I'm not worried about the first half because UConn's kept everything closed in the tournament so far in the first half.
Yep.
Second half, if Miami comes out, no foul trouble, go shot for shot with them, UConn's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's my outtake.
Yeah. I agree. It's going to be a second half ball game because UConn has proved time and time again if they keep it within 5 in the first half, they come out in the second half and just demolish whoever it is within the first 3 minutes of the ball of the second half. So
I will say this.
I agree.
I have to give kudos to Arkansas because I looked at all 3 of them. Arkansas only had a plus 16.
Mm-hmm.
Gave UConn a plus 16 in their game. Everybody else is high 20s, low 30s.
Yep.
So kudos to you, Arkansas out there. But I think Miami can get them.
Yeah.
So speaking of that scoring margin, I do remember a team. I'm not sure how old you guys are, or if you guys remember this team or not, but there was a team in the 90s that was beating everybody by 30 and 40 points in every game and lost in the Final Four to a team that they had beaten by 30 the year before.
Whoa. Who was that?
I'm not going to, well, I wasn't going to mention their name, but this team was going for a perfect record on the season, the UNLV Running Rebels, and they had beaten Duke by 30 in the championship the year before.
Whoa.
And was going for a undefeated season, and Duke clamped down and beat UNLV.
Whoa.
Even though UNLV had been beating teams by 30, 40 points the entire tournament. So it can, just because you're outscoring them by a lot in the early rounds, doesn't always translate to the Final Four.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
If they can do it in the Final Four, then they win.
Yeah.
But Miami's got speed.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And Miami, without going to any further, there's 2 teams left in the tournament, Miami and somebody else, and you'll find out here in a minute, that have speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Miami has hands.
Mm-hmm.
Speed and hands kind of, you can take over a basketball game, press. I mean, another thing Miami does pretty good is they do a pretty hardcore full court pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to say, put that out there.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Like I said, I think Miami presents a lot of matchup problems for UConn in this game.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a fun game to watch if it plays out the way I think it's going to play out.
This is my vote for probably the best game of the tournament, at least in the Final Four. I think.
So speaking of other games in the Final Four, what are we going to call this game with Florida Atlantic University and San Diego State? Is this the upset special? Is it the midnight dance for Cinderella? Or what do we call it?
I guess.
Well, you really can't count San Diego State as a Cinderella to a 5 seed. But I will tell you this.
Yeah, but look where bracket they were put in again, and what adversity they had to come through.
I understand that. So, here's where I'm going with this. If I'm not mistaken, I do not think that the lowest seed to ever make the national championship was a 7.
No.
What was it?
North Carolina State won the national title as a 10 seed.
Okay. What, one time? It's happened one time outside of the 7 seed making it?
I think there's a couple 10 seeds that have won it in the past.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying this. I'll go out there and say this much. FAU has speed, has hands. There's some balling. They're balling. They're doing good.
Yeah.
San Diego State has speed, has hands. I do think that game's going to be a really quick pace game. Not going to see a lot of foul trouble. My opinion. I could be wrong, depending on the refs. I will put that out there.
If this game gets up and down and is a quick pace game, San Diego State's in a lot of trouble because that's not how they play.
No.
But I just feel like that's what FAU is going to do. They come out in the last game and they were running up and down the court like it was no other.
Yeah. Well,
nobody expected them to win. They pulled off the upset, and
let's be real for a minute. So in the game, in the NCAA tournament, it's all about matchups. It don't matter if you're a 1 seed versus a 16 seed. If you match up well with that team, then you got a chance.
Yeah.
San Diego State and FAU matches up well, but I feel, my gut feeling is that San Diego State has just a slight advantage. I know FAU is a good team, but San Diego State just has that it factor.
What is that it factor, George?
Well, if they can do if they can do anything that they did to Alabama, FAU is in a lot of trouble. If they start playing their hands game, the pickpocketing, and let's put it this way: if they get 20 turnovers on FAU, they're done. FAU's over.
Yeah.
If that happens, first and second half, that's going to be a major factor.
That's correct.
Because SD State is a very good capitalizing on turnover team. They just are.
We've already seen FAU play the number 1 defensive team in America, and they were still able to score and put up points.
Yep.
And in the end, walked away in that game.
Yep.
Opened it up late. So I kind of feel like with that ability to score against a good defensive team like that, I have to give FAU the edge here.
I have to.
And the only reason I say that is because, yes, they played a good defensive team, but how many turnovers did Tennessee cause? And not many.
Which tells me that FAU's pretty good handling the rock.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, George.
Yeah.
Last game, FAU and K-State. How many turnovers did FAU have?
I don't know. How many did they have?
16. So
16?
Here we go. Yeah, I agree with you.
If they have 20 in that game, they lose.
They caused 16 turnovers. So
they caused them. I thought you
they
said
caused Kansas State to have 16 turnovers.
Oh yeah, no, they did. Yeah,
So you have 2 teams that clearly like to pickpocket you. And my outtake on this game is I'm giving FAU the advantage, and I'm going to tell you why. It's going to be FAU handles the ball better than San Diego State does. And FAU can cause you to turn it over.
Okay.
San Diego State handles the ball, but just is not as, in my opinion, as good as FAU. And I'm picking FAU to win it. I just like I'm picking Miami to beat UConn.
Wow. So you just segued right into our picks. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's perfect spot right there. We'll go ahead and name our picks. Who you got, George?
I'm gonna go UConn, San Diego State. Lock it in. That's who I got.
I'm going FAU and Miami, with the All Florida final,
Hold on.
and
Hold on.
George and Kenneth. That's my final answer.
Mm-hmm.
FAU and Miami.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I'm going FAU and Miami, my final answer. Now, before we go any further, I got a question so everybody knows. National championships Monday night.
Only one was San Diego State and UConn. All right, that's fine. Okay.
Now, national championships Monday night.
Yep.
Chris, I'm asking this so everybody that's listening can know. Are we going to go live before the game or during the game?
Mm.
I would like to go.
What time is the game?
I'm not mistaken. It's a 7 or 8 o'clock game. It's a night game on prime time.
Mm.
Look it up real quick for me.
You'll do a quick halftime show, maybe.
I'm right in the process.
Well, but there's a reason I'm asking because I kind of like after we get through Saturday to do something live to where we pick our winners for the national championship.
Mm.
If that's cool with everybody. I
already know who I want the national champion to be. So
I know who you want.
It says 8:20 p.m. on CBS, but I don't know if that's Eastern or Central.
That's Central. That's my time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a late game. There's a reason it had to be a late game this night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
I will tell you this. No matter, I got to say this. I was trying to hold out not to say this. Does everybody realize? Can anybody answer this question for me? Chris, you might know. I don't know if George knows. Out of the 4 teams in the Final Four, how many of them has ever played in one?
I love the suspense, man. UConn has.
UConn.
Is it? I know you know, Chris, because I've already talked to you about it. George, is there anybody else?
I want to say back in the.
I would say Miami, maybe, but no, I guess not. UConn is the only team that's played in the Final Four.
UConn is the only team in this Final Four that has ever made the Final Four. San Diego State, Miami, and what's the other one? FAU. They're all first-time Final Four appearances.
Yeah.
And I'm going on a limb to tell you that I just think that
you think
there's one thing this tournament showed me. It's been the wildest tournament in years, and the best team just ain't won.
Yeah.
It's the team that shows up that day. Like we quote in football, it's any given Saturday. Well, this is going to be any given Saturday, this Saturday, because it's going to be the team that wants it the most. It's not going to be the team that's the most experienced.
But let me counter with this. I'm going to counter with this.
Counter too.
Okay, you keep saying it's not the best team that wins. But what we do know to be fact, FAU led the nation in victories. They have the best record in the country.
Correct.
San Diego State was number 7 in wins in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mistake that these two teams are playing each other for a spot in the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Are you sure that the best team is not winning, or is it just based on perception that the best team isn't winning?
Okay.
Well, okay.
I'll say this.
I'll take it a step further. Hang on, because I'm going to add it to what he's saying. Alabama choked because they were tired. Okay, that was a lot of it. Okay, there's a lot of teams that didn't play their best because they were tired. That is not going to be a factor this time. You are going to have all 4 teams very well rested, and they play when do they play?
Saturday.
The semifinals are Saturday and the finals are Monday.
Right. So you got Saturday, and then you got Sunday, and then Monday. So you got 4 teams that are going to be very well rested playing each other. The factor is going to be which team is going to match up best against each other, and also which team wants it.
some played Saturday, some played Sunday.
They had a whole week.
They got 5 days, 6 days rest.
Right. So you got 6 days to prepare. That's a whole week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's the deciding factor for me. Who is going to do the best job at coaching? Because the game plan is going to need to be strategic. If you see what I'm saying? Which coach? Because I say that because Eric Musselman, that's the problem with having such a short span between the Sweet 16, or excuse me, the round of 32 and the Sweet 16, because you don't have enough time to prepare. But to give you an example, you give him a week to prepare. He is, I can't remember what it is. It's like 6-0 or something like that in games that he has enough time to prepare. And which coach is going to prepare the best and come up with the best game plan? And that's a factor nobody's really thinking about. That's where I think it's going to come down to is coaching.
Okay. So let me ask you this, George.
Mm-hmm.
That you said that you have exactly when that last game's done, Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, whenever it is.
Yep.
You have roughly 48 hours.
Yep.
A little less than 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
To game plan. Really, you don't even have that because you got to go through practice and you got to go through this and that.
Yep.
We're just going to say 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's a coaching thing.
Mm.
So if you want to go that far, the best coach to game plan in a short amount of time is the dude at FAU.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had 2 days. He didn't even have 2 days.
Yeah.
He had less than 36 hours to game plan
for Kansas State. Yeah.
For Kansas State. Right. And look what they did to Kansas State.
You're exactly right.
Now, everybody's going to say, well, look at what UConn did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on.
UConn played UConn.
But the UConn coach already come out and said in his press conference, before the tournament started, he said if they seen Gonzaga, his plan was to put him in foul trouble. So he already had this game planned for months because he knew there was a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the end of the day, FAU has the. I mean, that's just my outtake.
And I feel you. And before we go any further, I want to get a word from our sponsors in here, and then we got a special segment coming up after this short ad.
All right, so I'm a baseball guy, and my goal is to actually see a game in every Major League Baseball stadium. Now, I'm more than a third of the way there, and I never buy from the team's websites. SeatGeek is my first stop whenever I'm heading to a new city for a ball game. Now, obviously, they've got some other sports, as well as concert tickets, Broadway, comedy, I mean, you name it. And now, for VSN listeners, they're actually offering you $20 off your first ticket purchase. So just use the code VSN, that stands for Variety Sports Network. So that's VSN to save $20. So put that to use for some food or for some drinks at whatever event you are wanting to attend. Again, that code is VSN to save $20 on your first SeatGeek purchase.
SeatGeek. So if you're planning on going to the Final Four or the semifinals, hit up SeatGeek and get you some good seats. But for our special segment, we're going to touch on something we haven't touched on all year long.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna touch on the women just a little bit.
Yes.
The last game of the Elite Eight is being played tonight. Virginia Tech and Ohio State. The end of the third quarter, Virginia Tech's actually up by 8 right now, 63-55.
Wow.
But 3 of the 4 teams in the Final Four are decided with Iowa, South Carolina, and let me check the you got to check LSU.
It's LSU.
So, in that, give me some quick thoughts.
Okay, so let's talk about something that Chris has talked about for months. Something that he's wanted to see. Well, he finally gets to see it.
Iowa and South Carolina.
It ain't even about Iowa and South Carolina. He wants to see Boston go against what's her name, Chris?
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. He's called this, y'all. I promise you, Chris has called this since I started on this podcast about this. I give it to him. He's gonna get the matchup. Now we can tell who the best woman in college basketball is, because they're gonna have to guard each other.
Actually, they don't guard each other. They play different positions. But that game,
we'll see.
I'm taking this route. If there's one team left in the tournament that can beat South Carolina, it would be the Iowa Hawkeyes and Caitlin Clark, because with the way she plays, you don't know if she's going to pull up and shoot a 3 or if she's going to zip a pass right past her head. And if she can play that style against South Carolina, I think it causes them problems. Now, do I think Iowa's going to beat them? They got to get a whole lot more physical to play down low in the post against South Carolina if they plan on beating that team. But that is going to be an excellent ball game, I think. On the other side of the bracket, we got LSU and the winner of the Ohio State Virginia Tech game.
Yep.
Personally, from what I saw from LSU last night, they are elite defensively.
Yes. Yep.
I just don't know that they can score enough against the good teams to move on from where they're at.
Chris, do me a favor. Go back to LSU schedule, and if I'm not mistaken,
South Carolina put it on them.
No. I wasn't going that far. I already know that. Did not LSU play Virginia Tech this year?
I didn't even look at that.
They played somebody out of Virginia. I remember that, and I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. It may not have been Virginia Tech, but they played somebody out of Virginia.
It was not Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
I remember they played somebody out of Virginia.
Yeah, it's going to be there. Those are whoever wins this ball game tonight. They're going to have their hands full with LSU, because if LSU can do what LSU does, which is defend and keep you from getting points, it's going to be a long night. But on the other hand, I think the South Carolina-Iowa game may be the best game we've seen all year. I think the two ladies are going to put on a show, and it's going to be who's going to crack first.
I'll say this: the women, whoever wins the Iowa-South Carolina game, wins the national championship. There's nobody on that other side of that bracket that can contend, in my opinion, with either one of them teams.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is LSU did play South Carolina earlier this year.
Yeah.
And South Carolina, it had been talked about for a long time. Both teams were undefeated coming into that game. A lot of people were chirping that LSU would give them problems. South Carolina was 100% ready for them.
Yeah.
And that game wasn't even competitive.
No, they out-physicaled them. They out-rebounded them. Anything on the stat sheet, it was a bloodbath. And that's what I hope to not see with Iowa.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can pick against South Carolina. I mean, they're they're as dominant as I've ever seen a women's basketball team in recent history. It's ridiculous. But to your point, Chris, the one team that I think would have a shot is Iowa.
Right.
I agree with that. I'm not picking that game. I'm just saying the winner of that wins the national championship.
Yeah. I think for me, I think this senior group at South Carolina is on a mission. I think they rank right up there with some of the great senior classes of all time, which includes the Rebecca Lobo class that didn't lose a game for 2 years? Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
The Tennessee class with the Meeks, Shamika Holdsclaw and Tamika Catchings.
Yeah.
That class was amazing. And this South Carolina class, I think they want to leave their mark as being just as good, if not better, than those classes.
Yeah.
And that's a huge motivational factor for them. I think South Carolina does beat Iowa. But, again, if there's a team that left in the tournament that could beat South Carolina, I think it could be Iowa just because of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. But it's going to be fun to watch, that's for sure.
And now looking at this Virginia Tech game, it looks like it's starting to slip away from Ohio State a little bit. Tech is now up by 10
in
the fourth quarter.
How much left in the fourth?
8.5 minutes.
Yeah, I was looking.
And since we're talking about Texas, Virginia Tech, that has to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a college sporting event.
It's great.
So I don't know, Kenneth, I don't know if you saw it or not, but the NCAA passed a rule in the women's tournament. The number one seeds get to host. And it's really neat to see. You're rewarding teams is basically what you're doing. But they passed a rule that even though you have a home court advantage, the PA,
you can't play them.
Yeah, you can't. If
they sung in the Sandman.
Yeah, play it for one school, you got to play it for both. So they pretty much told teams, no, you can't play your own pet music. And the fans at Virginia Tech just said, you know what? Our school can't play it, but they can't stop us from singing it.
Nope.
Yeah,
that's got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
So, who you got winning the national championship?
I just told you. The winner of the Iowa South Carolina game wins the national championship in women's.
I think South Carolina wins it in women's. What about you, George?
I can't go against South Carolina. If I get proven wrong, cool. But they're just on another level.
Right.
I mean, I honestly, and this is not. I mean, yes, it's a joke, but I really honestly think you put them up against some men's teams and some divisions, they could probably whoop their tails. Them ladies are something else.
Can I take a shot? Can I fire that shot?
Go right ahead.
There's a team in the SEC that if the South Carolina women played them, would beat them. And they happen to wear purple and gold.
That is funny. This year they could beat. Yes.
Ouch. Yeah. Thanks to Will Wade.
So we've talked about the women. We've talked about the Final Four matchups. Who we think's going to win? Kenneth, just in 2 words or less, who's your national champion in men's?
Owls.
Wow.
Who you got, George? 2 words or less.
UConn all the way.
That's more than 2 words, but I'll give it to you. You said UConn. Hurricane warning. I'm going
so none of us are taking San Diego State.
No.
Nope.
Hold on a minute.
No. Wait a minute.
I gotta bring something up. Earlier in this podcast, we had somebody say San Diego's.
He said they'd get to the championship.
UConn. I don't think UConn makes it. So
UConn's gonna make it.
We'll see.
I mean, hey,
he's got history on his side. Arkansas,
Okay.
the last 3 years, Arkansas has lost to the national champion.
Or either the
Last
national
two.
champion or the runner-up. But this year they lose the national champion. It's UConn.
Okay, we'll see.
And before we leave, the more I look at the bracket that we got seated in, man, did we not have a chance? the 4 teams: Kansas, Gonzaga, UConn, and I can't remember what the 4th one was.
UCLA and Johnny G.
Yeah, UCLA. Man, that was a tough bracket. So, but I'm glad we made it to the Sweet 16 3 years in a row. I'll take it. Got as everybody else did in the SEC. So Bama didn't get farther than we did. Whoop.
I don't think any team advanced past the Sweet 16 from the SEC.
Nope. Tennessee, Arkansas, and Alabama all died in the Sweet 16.
We still hold last 2 years, yet last year and the year before, the furthest in the SEC, Elite 8. 2 years in a row.
Yep.
I will take it.
Well, it's been fun tonight, guys. We kept it under an hour for a change.
We did.
So we will be on Saturday night. I don't know if we're going to go pregame, mid-game, or post-game.
Okay.
No, not Saturday. Monday night.
Monday night, yeah.
So don't know if it'll be pregame, mid-game, or post-game, but we will definitely be here Monday night to talk about the national championship game. We look forward to seeing you. And for Kenneth and George, we're saying goodbye from second to none. And want to thank you all for watching. You guys have a good night, and we'll catch you next week.
See you guys.